The sky above Arcadion gleamed with vertical skylanes and a distant roar of anti-grav vehicles. Neon glyphs flashed across towering spires, casting reflections on Lyra's polished armor. She stood still amid the crowd, her violet skin catching stray glances, but no one dared approach a Datari enforcer. Especially not one like her. She wasn't supposed to be here. Her neural relay had intercepted a rogue transmission minutes ago. It wasn't encrypted with Datari protocol, nor Earth military. It was something else, a pattern she hadn't seen since the Frontier Wars. Her boots glided silently across the polished alloy tiles of the plaza. The signal led her to the central COMM tower restricted zone. She pressed herself against a column, eyes narrowing. There he was. Zarkan. He stood where no one from their unit should. Back turned, visor off, speaking in hushed tones into a communicator embedded in his gauntlet. His other hand gripped something small, glowing. Forbidden tech. Foreign. Lyra's breath caught. Her heartbeat, normally steady, pounded against her ribs like a war drum. Zarkan, the one who swore blood oath beside her on the fires of Mirian Ridge, was committing high treason. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This wasn't a drill. She stepped forward. And that's when it happened. A strong arm wrapped around her from behind, a calloused hand covering her mouth. Before her warrior reflexes could react, she was yanked into the shadows of a side corridor. Her back slammed against a warm chest. "You'll be dead if you say one more word," the voice hissed low, urgent, not hostile. Human. Lyra's fists clenched. Every instinct in her screamed to flip him over her shoulder, to unsheath her plasma blade and sever his spine. But something about his tone. She stopped. Elias Marin. She recognized him now. Earthborn, civilian registered, supposedly a comms engineer assisting with interspecies tech calibration. She had filed reports on his presence before, nothing out of line. But now, his hand was over her mouth, his breath warm at her ear, his eyes fixed behind her. Not on her, but on Zarkan. Elias slowly released her. "Look again," he whispered. "Don't let your fury get you killed." Lyra turned. Zarkan was no longer speaking. He was scanning the plaza. Looking for someone. Looking for her. She retreated deeper into the shadows, her back brushing the glowing runes of the wall. Elias followed, keeping his voice low. "They know you're onto them." That wasn't a conversation, it was a signal. He wanted you to see it. He's drawing you out. "How do you know that?" she snapped, voice laced with venom. "Why should I trust a human rat hiding in our towers?" He didn't flinch. "Because if I wanted you dead, I'd have let you charge him." Silence stretched between them. The city pulsed beyond the alley, alive, unaware. In the dim corridor, her fingers still tingled from the tension, her pride aching from being handled. Yet behind Elias's composed facade, there was no mockery. Only fear. "He's working with someone off-world," Elias said. "But not for power. They're trying to expose you." "Expose me? For what? I'm not hiding anything." "Aren't you?" Lyra's jaw tightened. She stepped away from him, glaring. You think you know what I am? I know what they think you are, Elias said, voice softer now. And that's enough to get you killed? The words landed like ice down her spine. The way he looked at her, not as prey, not as threat, but with something akin to warning, protection. It made her furious and afraid. Why would you help me? He looked up, the edges of his eyes shadowed with fatigue. Because I've seen what they do to people like you. The ones who don't fit into neat roles. The ones who were never supposed to survive the war. A sharp hum cut the air. Back in the plaza, a squad of black-armored sentinels emerged from the far side. Zarkan walked beside them, speaking calmly. His eyes swept the crowd and landed precisely where she would have stood had Elias not intervened. Lyra exhaled slowly. I could kill you right now? Elias nodded. You could. But then you'd never find out why they want you erased. She looked at him long and hard. He was no warrior. No one's champion. Just a man with quick hands, sharp eyes, and too many secrets. And yet, he had stopped her from walking into a death trap. She pulled the hood of her cloak over her armor, stepping into the deeper alley. Her voice dropped. One step out of line, Elias, and I will end you? Fair, he said, lips curling into a half-smile. But until then try not to scream. They disappeared into the labyrinth of Arcadion's forgotten underworld. The hunt had begun. And neither of them were sure who was hunting whom. The air in the maintenance tunnels was thick with metal dust and old energy residue. Arcadion's underground was a graveyard of forgotten systems, half-lit corridors, leaking coolant, walls marked with old war glyphs faded by time. Lyra walked several paces ahead, her boots clicking against the rusted metal floor. Her body moved like a predator's, alert, sharp, every sound feeding into her instincts. But beneath the armor, beneath the rigid posture, something burned in her chest. He knew. Elias trailed behind, his footsteps deliberately slow, as if giving her space. He could feel the heat of her tension like radiation. She hadn't spoken since they descended. They reached an abandoned junction room, once a communications relay, now empty save for a flickering hollow screen and dust-choked conduits. Lyra turned on him, eyes narrowed. Talk. Now. Elias didn't flinch. I will. But first, deactivate your COMM link. She hesitated, then touched a spot behind her ear. The faint hum in her skull ceased. Silent. Elias leaned against the console, his arms crossed. You're not just Tatari infantry. You're royal lineage, old blood, from the first convergence. Your name, Velshan, is buried in archives even your commanders can't access. Lyra stared. That name means nothing now. It means everything. She clenched her jaw. How would a human like you even know that name? Because I work for the Interstellar Accords Shadow Division. I've spent 6 years embedded, monitoring power shifts among the Tatari factions. He stepped forward slowly. And lately, too many of your own people have been dying in training accidents quietly, precisely. All of them shared one thing, ancestry ties to the royal bloodlines. You're the last. Lyra's spine stiffened. The words scraped against old memories. A girl pulled from the ruins of a palace no one spoke of. Whispers in the barracks. A tutor silenced. Dreams that ended in fire. This is madness, she murmured. If I was a threat, why keep me alive this long? Elias's eyes darkened. Because you were useful as a weapon. But now that alliances are shifting, you're a liability. Zarkan's betrayal wasn't personal. It was strategic. She felt the room close in around her. You mean, he let me find him? On purpose. Elias nodded. They needed a pretext to detain or eliminate you without backlash. Catch you acting unstable. Betraying orders. That would justify everything. Her fists clenched. Every breath felt heavier, sharper. I fought beside him for 7 cycles. I saved his life on Crixus 7. He was my blood brother in the field, right? And he'll be the first to put a blade through your chest the moment he gets clearance. Lyra turned away, pressing a gloved hand to the console to steady herself. Her mind reeled. I don't want your sympathy, Elias. I want proof. I don't have sympathy. Just facts. He stepped closer, voice lowering. You were born in the twilight days of the Datari Civil War. The palace was razed, but not before a rebel guard took a child marked with the seal of the Velshan line and smuggled her out. She turned slowly. You're saying that child was you. The markings were hidden, your name scrubbed, memories suppressed. But your DNA doesn't lie. The Accord has scans from battlefield medics. You match the Velshan genome fragment perfectly. Lyra staggered back a step, as if struck. Her thoughts tangled like a broken relay. I never asked for any of this. I know. That's why they thought you'd never figure it out. Silence settled between them like static. The overhead lights buzzed faintly. Lyra's gaze drifted to her hand-scarred knuckles, call-used palms. Built for battle, not for crowns. The idea of royalty felt foreign. Offensive, even. So what now? You expect me to run? Hide? Elias's expression tightened. No, I expect you to survive. And to do that, we need to dismantle Zarkan's operation before he reports your location to the council. She exhaled hard. Why are you helping me, Elias? This goes beyond intel. You could have walked away. He looked at her for a long moment. Because I've seen too many leaders die before they ever had a choice. You've got one. Take it. Lyra didn't answer right away. Her mind swirled with images: Zarkan's cold expression, the warmth of Elias's breath when he pulled her aside, the weight of her past pressing down on a future she never asked for. She reached into her satchel, pulled out a chip data core, and tossed it to him. Encrypted. But it's all I've got. Pull what you can. He caught it. Nodded. We lay low for one night. After that, we move. There's an old observatory near the outer wall, abandoned, pre-war tech. Safe for now. She gave a curt nod. As they moved out, Lyra glanced back once. Elias was already ahead, his silhouette cutting a confident path through the dark. For the first time in cycles, she didn't walk alone. But trust was still far behind. The city had turned hostile overnight. Every scanner, every security drone, every watchful eye now hunted their faces. 2 fugitives. 1 royal bloodline. 1 traitorous human. Bounties in 2 languages blinked across hollow ads. Arcadion no longer felt like neutral ground. Elias and Lyra moved in silence, hugging the back alleys until they reached a sealed maintenance shaft. Elias pried it open with an old clearance chip and led them down. The hatch groaned shut behind them. Cold swallowed them instantly. This was no ordinary tunnel. This was part of Arcadion's forgotten underbelly, the original magrail network, decommissioned decades ago. Elias walked ahead, flashlight cutting through the dust-laced dark. "You know this place too well," Lyra muttered. "I live down here," he said, not turning. After the bombing of Sector 5, there weren't shelters for people like me. Just tunnels. She followed, her footsteps echoing off steel. The deeper they went, the more the city's noise faded, replaced by a hollow hum of ancient energy still trapped in the rails. They arrived at a storage alcove, tiny, barely lit. Elias tossed down a thermal mat and pulled out 2 nutrient packs. Lyra didn't sit. "So this is it? Hiding in holes until we rot." Elias leaned back against a crate, unwrapping his ration. "No. This is the breathing room before the strike." She paced. "You sound like a soldier. But you wear no crest. No oath? What are you really, Elias?" He looked at her, eyes shadowed. "I was a brother. Once." She stopped. "To who?" "2 sisters. They died during the war. Datari assault on Sector 8. Wrong coordinates. Wrong intel." Lyra's face tensed. The words were familiar, too familiar. Civilian casualties, burned homes, broken treaties. She had read the reports, even justified them at times. But standing here, face to face with one of the names buried beneath those files. "You hate us." "No," he said. "I hate what war makes of us." She said then. Quiet. The silence stretched. Above them, patrols began scanning the upper levels. A low drone passed overhead. Elias muted the ambient light. "They are closer than I thought," he whispered. Lyra leaned back against the wall. She watched Elias from the corner of her eye. Not a fighter. Not trained. But resilient. And for some reason, still here. "Why didn't you turn me in? Could have cashed a fortune." He glanced at her. "You think I'm here for credits? You're not a bounty. You're the last damn firewall before this city burns." Her lips twitched. Not a smile. But something less guarded. They slept in turns. Elias took first watch. When Lyra woke hours later, he was scribbling on the back of an old maintenance map marking tunnels, exits, power lines. "We'll need a distraction," he murmured without looking up. "I know a relay junction that still connects to the central grid." We overload it. Half the city's cameras go dark. She nodded. Then we hit the server banks. Pull Zarkan's records. Elias looked up. And exposed them all. There it was. For the first time, shared mission. Lyra shifted. Her voice softened. When you said you lived here, what was it like? He leaned back, eyes distant. Lonely. But quiet. Safer than the surface. I used to sit near the broken skylight at Terminal A3. Watch the stars through the cracks. Pretend the world was still up there. Lyra thought of her childhood shattered palaces, silent corridors, her name never spoken aloud. They were different species, different fates. But the loneliness? That was the same. I used to dream I had a family, she said, surprising herself. A real one. Not commanders. Not trainers. Just people who chose me. Elias didn't speak. He just nodded, slow and deliberate. Then came the thud. Heavy boots. Echoes. Lyra and Elias shot up simultaneously. She reached for her plasma blade. He grabbed the old pulse rifle he'd stashed nearby. 2 patrols, he whispered, checking his handheld. I'll draw them, Lyra said, voice clipped. You circle and disable the scanner hub. That's suicide. That's distraction. Elias cursed under his breath, but nodded. They moved. Lyra exploded from the alcove, sprinting toward the echoing hallway. Energy bolts lit the darkness. She flipped behind a pipe column, returning fire, forcing the patrols to split. Elias darted the opposite direction, bypassing a maintenance panel. Sparks flew as he rewired a relay. One of the sentries spotted him. A warning shot grazed his shoulder. Lyra roared and hurled a flash charge between them. Light consumed the corridor. Elias vanished into the shadows. She followed moments later, breath ragged, adrenaline high. They regrouped at a broken tram line. Both panting. Both alive. Elias turned to her, bleeding. You didn't have to come back. She met his gaze. We're not done yet. His smile, faint but real. Good. Because I'm just getting started. They disappeared into the dark again. The city hunted them. But this time, they were hunting back. The transmission center loomed before them like a sleeping titan, silent, sealed, and humming with contained power. Perched high above Arcadion's industrial quadrant, it was built into the cliffside, half forgotten but still hardwired to the planetary servers. This was where Zarkan kept his secrets. Lyra adjusted her gauntlet interface, voice barely a whisper. Security pulls every 60 seconds. Doors will reset for 4. That's our window. Elias nodded, already synchronizing his hacking module. We disable the firewall, extract the logs, and get out. Quick. Quiet, Lyra corrected. She checked her blade. If one alarm goes off, we're not escaping. The hatch opened with a sigh of released pressure. Cold, blue-lit corridors greeted them. They moved fast. Lyra led the way, disabling patrol sensors with precise hand gestures. Elias trailed close behind, fingers dancing over his wrist console. Every corner they turned brought them closer to the core. At last they reached the mainframe chamber. Cylindrical pillars rose like glass monoliths, pulsing with data. In the center, a control pod shimmered in soft crimson. Elias plugged in a decryptor. "I need 90 seconds. "You've got 60, Lyra snapped, taking position near the door. Time bled. Then came the noise. A shift in air pressure. Lyra's instincts screamed. She spun, blade raised and met the muzzle of a Datari rifle. A squad of enforcers had breached from the upper ducts, silent and deadly. One fired. Elias didn't think he moved. Shoved Lyra aside. The plasma bolt slammed into his side, burning through fabric, flesh, and bone. He dropped instantly, smoke curling from the wound. Elias. Lyra dove beside him, voice raw. Blood soaked his shirt, dark against the floor, soaking into her gauntlet, streaking her red armor. The guards advanced. She rose. Something inside her cracked. A heat she didn't recognize surged through her core. Her vision shimmered. The glyph on her neck, long dormant, flared to life. She screamed. Light exploded from her chest. Not fire. Not energy. Inheritance. The room warped, columns vibrating. Her body hovered inches above ground, glowing. The enforcers froze. One fired. The bolt dissolved midair. She extended her hand. The main crystal in the chamber cracked, splintered by a wave of power. The surge rippled through every node, overloading systems, disabling their suits. The squad fell like puppets with cut strings. Lyra collapsed to her knees, chest heaving. Sparks rained. She turned to Elias. He was pale. Shaking. Eyes flickering. Elias, no, stay with me. You idiot. Why would you? His lips moved. A whisper. Told you, not just a soldier. Tears blurred her sight. She gripped his hand. You can't die. Not yet. I haven't even. He smiled faintly. You said, if we die, let it be real. She pulled him close. His blood smeared across her neck. But his smile didn't fade. Then the decryptor beeped. Data, extracted. Lyra looked at the screen. Zarkan's files. Messages. Orders. The plan. Names. Everything. Proof. She hoisted Elias's body onto her shoulder, teeth clenched against the pain. If you die, she whispered, I'll burn the whole damn city with you. And then she vanished into the smoke, carrying both the data and the only human she'd ever loved. The broadcast lit up Arcadion's skies. From the city's tallest spires to the deepest levels of its underworld, every screen flared to life. Every encrypted channel blinked with the same data burst. Names. Orders. Recordings. Visual proof of Zarkan's betrayal, collusion with external factions, assassination lists, political manipulation masked as military restructuring. Lyra's face was on the footage too. Not as a fugitive, but as the one who risked everything to bring truth to light. And beside her, Elias wounded, barely breathing, but alive. The ripple effect was instant. Zarkan was arrested by his own lieutenants. War was called off. Temporarily. But the price? Heavy. Lyra and Elias, now wanted by both the Datari High Command and the Accord's own Oversight Council, were marked as dangerous operatives who had acted without sanction. The truth had saved thousands but challenged power. And power hated exposure. That morning, under a bruised Arcadion sky, a battered starship prepped for launch. Lyra stood on its upper hull, watching the last light of the city wash across the horizon. The air carried the weight of endings. Streets that had once hunted them were now quiet. Her armor was scorched, blood still caked near the collar. Elias emerged from the medbay, a fresh pressure wrap around his torso. His steps were slower, but steady. She turned at his approach. "You shouldn't be standing yet. And miss the last sunrise I'll ever see from here?" She exhaled. Not a sigh. Something softer. He stepped beside her, looking out at the skyline. "They'll spin it," he said quietly. "Turn us into villains. Make it cleaner. Let them. We didn't do it for headlines." He glanced at her. "Then why did you do it, Lyra?" She hesitated. Then. "Because for once, I wasn't following orders. I was following you." His throat tightened. Her voice had changed, less steel, more earth. Still powerful, but human. The ship's engines began to warm. A deep hum underfoot. He looked at her. Really looked. And saw it. Not the soldier. Not the symbol. Just Lyra. And she smiled. It was slight. Almost imperceptible. But real. "If there's one thing that changed me," she said, "it's the way you looked at me, not as a weapon, but as a person." Elias couldn't speak. So he reached for her hand instead. She didn't flinch this time. As the ship lifted off, Arcadion shrank beneath them, becoming a city of lights, shadows, and stories. Not their home anymore. Not their war. The stars awaited. They stood together in the observation deck, watching the atmosphere fade into void. Lyra's voice broke the silence one last time. "We don't belong to them anymore?" Elias nodded. "No. We belong to each other." And in the vast silence of space, where names carried no rank and bloodlines had no throne, they chose. Not sides. But each other. Always each other.